On to the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation on this 7th day of November 2023. City is excited because he's catching up with Moses Nderitu.
Yes.
Moses is the Chief Revenue Officer of BasiGo. And Yumana City are quite excited.
BasiGo. Moses and I have known each other before, Basi or Go.
But now he has a revenue bite of bit of it. So the things that you used to do those days,
we were planning things like BasiGo.
In Hurlingham. Okay.
Now you know.
Moses, welcome.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Karibu sana. So Moses is the Chief Revenue Officer for the company called BasiGo. We'll be talking about e-mobility. He's been here before. We've talked about that. Moses, let's hear the day's proverb. City?
Well, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Congo, the Republic of Congo. Congo Republic. Congo Brazzaville, same Congo. Not to be confused with DRC. Great events may stem from words of no importance.
Great events may stem from words of
no importance.
No importance.
You know, some words of no importance were uttered on Saturday. And great events followed thereafter. This myth called unbeaten disappeared.
Shut up.
But on a more serious note, closer to home, I would say, like, when we are naming kids, sometimes you name somebody,
no, I think we should
and
stick
the
on
name
the
becomes
Saturday.
great. I'm trying to move away from
I think
Eric's
we should
story.
stay there.
Let's stay on last night. The unbeaten last night, unbeaten disappeared. Ati, you name children?
See, like my friend here was named, somebody poured some water on him and called him Charles.
Right.
What does Charles mean? Charles means a free man, no greatness. So a small word can perpetuate to become a great thing.
That's why he's a great man.
Yeah, so he's a great man. Good recovery.
Whoa!
It's
all right.
You know, when you're in the presence of a visionary.
Who are you? Who are you? Disagree.
Who am I?
Somebody in the first hour said I was coming here gloating, so I thought, let me give him back something.
It's good. I like it. Please.
Something to take home.
No comeback.
BasiGo.
Yes, please.
The people who don't know what BasiGo is, so let's not assume that everybody does. So introduce us to this company.
Well, we are an e-mobility startup that is actually allowing or making it possible for bus operators in, we used to say in Kenya, but now we are saying in Africa, acquire electric buses. So that's basically what we are doing. So we are now in Kenya and setting up in Rwanda. And what we do is through our innovative financing model, which is called Pay As You Drive, we allow, we make it possible for a bus operator, like you've been saying, acquire what is would be an expensive bus if you were to just buy it. So what they do is they can either lease the bus or do a battery lease, and then we finance that through a mileage-based financing program. So you pay based on the number of kilometers you drive. Yeah.
Why is it important for the bus operator? They're already in the business.
Yeah.
They already have a fleet of buses on the road.
I think maybe we need to also just a bit change the narrative from the bus operator to the actually bus user.
Okay.
Because as we can see right now, bus fares are at the point whereby the elasticity is gone. So the bus operators are now beginning to get into losses because they cannot put up fares beyond where they are with what's going on with fuel. So the bus operators have to be innovative. How do they stay in business, and how do they keep serving this majority of Kenyans who actually use public service buses? So one of the best ways, or one of the ways that we have found an opportunity for them to then move electric, which then brings down their costs significantly, and of course it's also increasing their revenue, and that keeps them in business.
bring down their costs?
It is much cheaper to run an electric vehicle than it is to run your ICE or your internal combustion engine vehicle. So, but the only challenge with electric vehicles is the high upfront cost. But with our model, what we are then doing is we're mitigating that high upfront cost by spreading it over the life of the vehicle through the pay-as-you-drive. Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at what it actually does then, for environment. Let's look at what it actually does for the pocket. So somebody who's getting into it is thinking, all right, look, especially with the things that we've been told yesterday, it's possible that we could see, fuel prices go, I don't even know if it's through the roof, through the heavens at this point. So what exactly does it do for you to have just take that, park that. When you talk about an e-mobility vehicle, what exactly are we talking about? Electric vehicle? Are we talking about, one that does not need gas at all? What exactly are we saying before I get to that?
So under e-mobility, we have several categories. In some countries, they consider hybrids e-mobility, because what hybrid have is they've got a battery that then kicks in and becomes the power plant, especially at low speeds. Then we've got what they call plug-in hybrids. Plug-in hybrids, you actually have to charge them, and they give you a certain number of kilometers, but they still have your combustion engine for when you want to do. And then there's the battery EVs or battery, which is now what maybe we the true e-mobility is the one that's fully battery. So what we are doing is 100% battery operated. So your battery is actually the engine of the vehicle. That's actually the power plant of the vehicle, which then takes the electric current into a motor, and that gives you propulsion on the vehicle, and that has to be charged using electricity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for this market, Kenya, is it viable and sustainable?
In fact, Kenya is one of the most viable countries for e-mobility for a very simple reason. We have a lot of green energy, and if we then go by what the government is saying, they want by the year 2030 for us to be 100%. We are 90%. But something else happens in this country. We've got something we call curtailment. At night, we have more power than we can use. So therefore, and a lot of us, what is your car doing at night? It's packed. So if we then could transition to electric mobility, then we start giving ourselves a fighting chance. We start cushioning ourselves from this high cost. Now, it is not the solution. It's one of the solutions, because it's not going to happen overnight. That transition must happen, but it must start, and that is what we are doing in the public service sector, where majority, and I would like to insist that majority of Kenyans still use buses and matatus. It's still the cheapest way to operate, to actually move from point A to point B. I know there's been a lot of emphasis on two-wheelers, and I actually support 100% on what's going on two-wheelers. But the biggest number of people who actually commute using buses, if you were to take a boda from here to town, you're going to pay at least 150 shillings. If you were to take a matatu off-peak, you will pay 30 bob or 50 shillings on peak. So it's still so if we want to then be able to cushion the Wanjiko, as we say, from these high fuel prices, which are not our doing, and they will continue going, because there's several things that are happening. There's a geopolitics that we are seeing, which was mentioned yesterday. There is what we are seeing with our local currency and with the dollar just strengthening. All those then work against us. But if we can then move a bit of that, even 5-10% of what we are sending in foreign exchange, so you're asking what does it do? And we'll come to the environment. If we can just start with that, just moving, government policy right now is 5% transition of all new vehicles. If you did 5% and assumed then we are ordering over time, we'll be ordering less and less fuel, then we actually start doing something on our balance of trade. We start doing something on easing the pressure on our strained foreign exchange resources, and then now we can come to the other issues. We can come to the environment. We can come to what happens to the passenger. We can come to what's happening to the bus owner. All those other things then become a multiply effect.
Because what we are doing essentially is that we're looking at options, right? Like you said, it's not the solution, it's a solution. But we're looking at options, because the truth of the matter is that there's really no wiggle room. When you come to one source, you're going to fuel your car, you're going to fuel a matatu as an owner. There's one source at the moment that is the majority used. So if we're looking at solutions, then if you're going to start with public transport, which we're saying is the cheapest, what then would it look like if a matatu today gave up what is that thing you called internal combustion?
ICE.
It's ICE for the heat of the internal combustion.
Internal combustion engine. Yes.
Right. If you want to give up that vehicle for an e-mobility vehicle, what would it look like today? Your 14-seater, your 22 and going upwards.
Yeah.
So what would it look like?
So right now, what we are doing, we are not concentrating on saying let's either convert your existing. Also, what we are looking at is the transition. We see that every year around 10% of the fleet gets transited, so it's retired, so either by accident or by they're no longer viable because they're running they've been running for a long time, or some of them even get converted back to trucks and they start carrying water and all the other things, vegetables. So we are looking at, as you then make your next purchase, and then move to electric. So that is actually what we are seeing in the market from the operators, and this is giving them a fighting chance. With the 19 buses we are running, they are actually when I was last year, we had 2 buses and we were doing proof of concept. What happened is, with the proof of concept, we saw that yes, electric buses can run in this country, that they are fit for purpose, that they can operate on our roads, despite not all the roads being great. We have a bus that's been plying the Dandora route, and I can tell you, during the rain, it goes through trials and tribulations. But the bus is still running and is still running well. The operating costs are still much lower than your diesel vehicle. We can see, because these buses are built as buses from the chassis upwards, they were originally designed as buses. You find that there is a higher comfort, so there is preference by the actual customers. Now, what does that translate? It translates to actually better returns for the owner. And if that happens, what we've not been able to do is affect pricing, because the fleet is still too small to be able to start affecting pricing and putting downward pressure on bus fares.
What size of fleet would you need to have for you to start affecting prices?
Right now, there's 20,000 matatus in Nairobi.
20,000?
20,000, run by around 320 SACCOs. I think when you start getting to, I would say, maybe a 5%, which is what we are hoping to have, 1,000 buses by 2026, you can then start affecting pricing, because you will find that certain routes will have more buses, and that will then start creating. You have to get to a critical mass before you can start affecting pricing. And
something that has always fascinated me, puzzled me about electric buses and electric vehicles and electric motorbikes. Charging. How did you solve that problem?
So, charging has always been they always say the chicken and the egg, which one comes first. However, I think sometimes you can either decide to see an obstacle or an opportunity. What are we doing? So currently for us, we've got already 3 charging depots. There's one in Buruburu, there's one very close to here at North Airport Road and Embakasi, and we have one in Kikuyu. We are soon going to be expanding the Embakasi one to a different site. We are looking at, we are going to be opening in the next few weeks, announcing one in Thika. We are looking at Juja, we are looking at Gong. So we are building those. And we are the same position, with e-mobility, we are the same position that telcos were 30 years ago. You have to build the infrastructure that you have to build. So that's what we are doing, because buses require a lot of power. So for you to be able to put a charger, a charging station or a charging depot, you must be on high voltage power, you must be close to the route where that bus operates, and you must have ample space. Now, on the other side, what have Boda Bodas done? The Boda Boda companies have got 2 models. You can either home charge, which again, you'll be charging majority at night, or you can battery swap. Battery swap is nothing new. we do it with our gas cylinders every single day. But I think when we say battery swap, it sounds so technical, and people think that we do it with our gas cylinders, we do it with our water bottles, your carrying it and those other water. That's what you're doing. You just take back, you take another one, and you continue, because what you're interested in is not the physics, it's the content. You want the energy. So that is already happening. There's a company with almost 100 swap stations. There's others. They're building that. That's happening. And then for personal cars, majority of personal cars will home charge. You'll charge at home when you're asleep. But you may do opportunistic charging at a high voltage power point, which we are providing and a few other companies are doing. So charging will follow. But I think we are at that position whereby if you wait for charging and then you'll buy the car, you'll keep waiting. And if you wait for, if the guys who want cars are saying, oh, we will not do it until, we'll be in this vicious cycle. Yeah. So somebody has to break it, bring in the cars, and the charging will follow. We'll bring in the bus. So I'm not going to bring buses that I cannot charge. Somebody's not going to bring bodas that you cannot charge. So if you allow the vehicles to actually start coming, the infrastructure will follow. Yeah, or actually will come in tandem. Because why would you invest in infrastructure if the vehicles are not there? And in the same way, why would you invest in the vehicles if the infrastructure is not there? So we have to walk and chew gum. Yeah,
or at least try.
Your argument is that it's more efficient to run an electric bus. So let's say in 10,000 kilometers, compare those two, the ICE bus and the electric bus. What would the costs be?
Let me give you just an practical example of the buses we are running. We are seeing that the average, assuming 30 days, your 33-seater normal matatu you see is consuming roughly 10,000 shillings a day of fuel. So it's going to spend 300,000
current
shillings.
Prices.
Well, yes, give or take.
Okay.
Every month it goes higher. Now, the equivalent just the electricity. So let's just talk about the power.
Okay.
The equivalent is 90,000 shillings of power. Now, 300,000, 90,000. The 300,000, majority of that money will go to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Majority of that goes. The 90 might be smaller, but it all remains here. Where does it go? It goes first to Kenya Power, take their share. They give Ketraco their share.
And
it goes Kengen their share. So it's remaining here. Yeah, and that is a huge benefit for what we are doing. Now, how then? Because at the beginning I said the electric vehicle is expensive.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? What is BasiGo doing? We then are sharing the 300 minus the 90, and that way we then create that financing gap so that you then can afford to be able to buy that electric vehicle. Yeah.
So the total cost of running this thing...
Total cost of ownership on any electric vehicle is much, much lower. It's actually as low as 50% total cost of ownership. But if I come to you and I tell you, Eric, buy this matatu for 20 million shillings, but in 5 years, you will now realize that this is actually cheaper than the one you bought for 5 million shillings. That argument is a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But if I tell you, let's start at the same point. You give me 5 million shillings, and
take the bus.
And take the bus. In 5 years, you'll be ahead of the guy with the diesel one. Yeah.
Is the maintenance infrastructure also available in the country for e-mobility vehicles across board? Or is there, take a number. If your thing is broken down, we'll get back to you in August, Or can you take it to if it has an issue today? Yeah.
Well, we guarantee the operators who've got the BasiGo buses 90% uptime. So we are saying if the vehicle is supposed to be available for 30 days, we are guaranteeing you 90%, which would be 27 days. What are we having right now? We're doing a 95% uptime. So we are stocking all the parts. We are making sure that we are training, and this is happening across board. So I can tell you, the guys who are doing bodas, they've got the parts, because there's no good reason. I mean, nobody wants to bring in technology and then tomorrow your bike cannot move because you do not have the parts. So at this initial stage, everybody is actually bending over backwards to ensure that one, we are training the technicians. Two, that the parts are available. But the beauty about electric vehicles, because there are not that many moving parts, the amount of damage or unless it's accident, for us what we are seeing is small accidents here and there, fender benders. That's what actually is causing the downtime. It's not mechanical breakdowns, and I can say that across the board with even my counterparts on the two-wheelers, they have very little downtime. Remember, these are new vehicles in a country that we buy vehicles that are new used vehicles. So already gives you an opportunity that you're actually buying new technology.
Zero mileage buses.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. There are many people who've said, if you look at Kenya and then look at Uganda, at Rwanda, it's like we started late. We started seeing e-mobility, especially in public transport in Uganda. They had their own before we had our own. We saw the same thing in Rwanda. Is this true?
Yes and no. So what I know, in Uganda, they started with Kira Motors, who are building the electric buses, and commendable, and that's a good start. Whoever, without knocking our neighbors, that said, we now are a bit ahead of them in terms of in that segment. Or at least in public transport.
Okay.
Yeah, I think on the two-wheelers, they are still a bit ahead, because it started again earlier than we did. Where the country that is doing extremely well, especially on two-wheelers, is Rwanda. And Rwanda basically have got very conducive policies in regards to e-mobility. So what the government there did is they were from the onset created an e-mobility tariff for power, which is very attractive. They dropped all taxes and duties for all electric vehicles and hybrids, which has then created a huge uptick. And now, and that is why as BasiGo, we actually venturing into the Rwanda market. Also there, with public transport being a bit more regulated, the barriers to entry are much easier, because then you're dealing with one government entity and 6 operators who are very well regulated. So routes are regulated, fares are regulated, so it's an easier situation.
So even players are limited.
They're limited. However, they've got a major bus shortage as we speak. So they've got a shortage of around 300 buses. So what the Rwandan government has said is, out of those 300, at least they're committing 200 of them will be electric, and that's just on the high capacity buses. When you come down to your 14-seater and your vehicles, they're actually moving ahead. Country that we've not been, maybe has not been in our purview, but recently just came into my radar, is Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, in April, they dropped all taxes on electric vehicles. And I must say, I have not seen more electric vehicles anywhere. I'm told Ghana is the same than I saw in Ethiopia. In every other new car in Ethiopia is an electric vehicle. Since April, they've imported around just under 10,000 electric vehicles. And I'm now talking about passenger vehicles. They're now looking at buses. Remember, Ethiopia has a lot of power with their huge Renaissance Dam, and then we are even importing power from there, which is renewable power. So e-mobility, Ghana is doing the same. Ghana is really moving forward, and so one of the things that you require is, one, conducive policies. Yeah, these policies must match. We must walk the talk. So if we are saying that we want to transition to 100% renewable energy, what are we going to do with this renewable energy? Transport is an excellent opportunity. So I like what the government is doing on the two-wheelers, but I would also say let's spread that benefit to the buses. Let's spread that benefits to the personal vehicles. Let's even spread that benefit to, hopefully we can actually get our trains, or the trains that operate. If we can electrify that, I saw that in Ethiopia. Excellent. The trip across town in Ethiopia is 6 beer. 6 beer is like 12 bob, because they have cheap power. So you could actually cushion the real monanchi, the real hustler, we are saying, from high
on this cost.
On the cost.
What is it that's taking us? What are these barriers for us? There's policy level, there's taxation. It seems like we've taken forever just having conversations with the regulator on tariff, and
I think on the tariff was the biggest win. The tariff is there. It was a start. We have an e-mobility tariff with a base cost of 16 shillings in the day and 8 shillings in the night. So that's the base tariff. So 8 kicks in at 10 p.m. all the way to 5 a.m. Works very well for us. Where the buses is when the buses are coming back. So when the border guys are going to charge their batteries, the guys swapping will charge. If you had an electric vehicle, you'll be charging. So that at least on the tariff, EPRA has done very well. I think now what we need to do is now move. How do we spur the uptake? How do I make sure that Eric can consider that his next purchase of a vehicle is going to be electric? Remember, I keep saying high upfront cost. That upfront cost. Now, a majority of electric vehicles are new. You don't have 8-year-old. They're there. I'm not going to say exactly the pre-owned vehicle. So if you're going to buy an 8-year-old electric vehicle, and we have seen a few here, you're buying the first generation. And then so that you can take up the advantage of depreciation. If you buy a new vehicle, which is what I saw in Ethiopia, then you're buying the latest generation with the higher capacity batteries, with higher range. And so, but if you then bring that vehicle here and zero depreciation, then you add 35% import duty, put 10% excise, put 16%, okay, VAT was removed on electric vehicles. Then you put your IDF, and that vehicle then becomes completely unaffordable. So that there's a fiscal policy that needs to be to align with what government is saying.
Overall policy.
So for us, what we are looking at is, one, we are committed, and we're actually starting in this November to do our first local assembly. We are committed to local assembly because that's the only way you can actually satisfy the market. As we speak, I have 340 a reservation list of 340 buses.
Orders.
These are guys who have said, I want an electric bus. I am putting a small deposit to be on the priority list. So market demand is available. But how then do I ramp up production to be able? So we are saying, can we allow, like what Rwanda is doing, like what Ethiopia is doing, like what Ghana is doing, like what Namibia is doing, like what Zambia is doing? All these guys are saying, okay, we will allow electric vehicles to come in at a duty free. And the loss they're making, the loss the government is going to make in tax, they will gain in additional. They own Kenya Power. They will actually be used. There's a multiplier effect. So that then remains here. Then we can talk about, what about the environment? If we keep buying 13-year-old cars and 8-year-old cars, the highest, what we are seeing is the increase of respiratory diseases. Today, yes, we are getting nice walkways. Those walkways and bicycle paths, it's excellent. And I think that's another area that we should actually start looking at. Kenyans should start cycling, and electric bikes help you not get to the office all sweaty because there's pedal assist. But if we keep putting these vehicles that are just blowing smoke, in what condition are you going to be getting? So when you need to walk, you have to, depending on where you live, you must leave your house, go to Karura, go somewhere far to just walk because of the amount of pollution. And it's clear, they keep telling us 40% of all particulates and pollution in this city is from transport. So if we can start cleaning up, there is such a huge multiplier effect. This is the one they say is a win-win. And I'm not selling you guys anything.
It's clear.
It's very clear that this is, even the president says that e-mobility is a lifeline for transport.
Moses, you're actually selling it, and it's a good thing. You should sell it because it's a good product. People should know about it. What I'm concerned about is this battery. How long does it last? How far can that
charge the battery?
I need to know.
Yeah.
I've got car, I've got battery, I want to go to Mombasa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I
go to Mombasa and come back when I get? I need to understand all these things.
So if you look at what's happening, especially in the personal vehicles, 5 years ago, the highest range you could get was around 300 kilometers. Today, there are vehicles doing a good 400, 450, 500 kilometers. So you will be able to get. But in those markets where those vehicles are, charging facilities are there. You're going to stop at Mtito. You're going to have a nice cup of chai with Dairy Best. When you're having that, you will charge the vehicle. So that infrastructure is going to come. But why would I then go and put in that infrastructure if there's no conducive environment to bring in the vehicle? So range anxiety is a real thing, But it's also a myth, because especially for us men, half the time our vehicles, the fuel light is on. It's almost become like an accessory. It's always on. So everybody's worried that I need to have, with electric, you want to have full tank. But in your normal car, unakaga 200, which is 1 liter.
I know this car.
I know that car. So there's a trade-off.
Iko na reserve tank kubwa.
Exactly, there's a trade-off. That's on personal vehicles. But on buses, it's very clear. Exactly like matatus. Matatus fill up every evening at the end of the day because tomorrow they want to operate the entire day. We are doing the same. The vehicle comes to one of our depots. It is charged.
It's a single charge at night, and that's it.
No, so what we are seeing, because the operators need to do a bit more during off-peak, or when the drivers these drivers work long hours. So they're picking buses at 5 a.m. and bringing them at 10 o'clock. So somewhere in the middle of the day, they take a break, an hour, 2, and they come back to the depot where they can charge and they top up. That gives them 300 kilometers or even more. So you then can increase the range. And that is why when I'm saying when we're building the infrastructure, it must be very close to the route, because you don't want a matatu that's going to Ngong telling it to come to Buruburu. You must have something in that direction. That is not as critical for a personal vehicle owner. Boda it's critical, and that's why Swap seems to be working, because he wants to be very moving quickly, remove one battery, take another one, and continue. And that's happening.
Do you think we'll have a hybrid system? I'm not talking about hybrid the vehicle now, but a hybrid system looking into the future whereby there is a certain amount, a certain percentage of vehicles on the roads which are electric vehicles, and others which continue using, your fuel sources, and say we get to the place where, because we talk about e-mobility as though it is going to bring down the prices of fuel, but not necessarily. But it's an alternative for obviously this crying pain that you feel when you're actually going to the pump.
We are in a transition phase, and that transition is not a 2-year, 3-year. It's a long transition. If you look at China is the one that's got the most electric vehicles, but it's only a small percentage. It's actually they're now getting to 40% of all new vehicles. Wow! But remember, the existing fleet remains. Same if you go to Norway, which is also doing. Norway has just now crossed 25% or 30% of all new vehicles. This is the first year where electric vehicles in Europe have outsold diesel vehicles. But the existing fleet remains. So that hybrid is a reality. So we are not, that's why I said it's a solution. It's not the solution. But what does it do? It allows you to actually say, if prices continue like this, you can cushion yourself in this way. And why do I say it? A lot of us, where do we drive to? You live in Westlands, you work in Upper Hill. How many kilometers do you drive? Very little. So an electric vehicle would be perfect for you. An electric motorcycle would be perfect for you. An electric bicycle would be perfect for you. But if you can't go through all that, if we can then create an orderly mass transport. I think what's lacking in this country is mass transport. And that's the only way to cushion people from this this expensive cost. We've seen even SGR has gone up. By 50%. Because fuel. So if we then can do this, and I like what the government, at least Namata is saying that when they do those BRTs, they'll be electric. That gives them a fighting chance from this expensive fuel. Because I when I look at my crystal ball, I don't see fuel going back to 110 or 120.
That's it.
I don't see it.
It's history.
It may come down, but too many things need to happen for fuel to come down.
Moses, so even if the war in the Middle East ends, they still won't come down.
Well, I'm just saying, if I'm Saudi Arabia and I'm sitting there and I'm enjoying these high prices, why would I bring them down? I'm making good money. I will bring it down slightly, but I'm enjoying. But then we also have the other regional pressure of forex. What are we going to do to ensure that our forex comes down to a point whereby then fuel prices can come down?
The dollar. So you're saying the dollar, you don't see the dollar coming back to 80 bob?
I would love. I mean, I'm a Kenyan. I want it to come down, but I don't know what we are going to do to
make it come back there.
The only way we can do is just higher exports or reduce our imports. So that, and one way is let's use locally generated power.
Enoch is still not convinced. He's asking, why are you avoiding the question, Moses? What is the range for an electric vehicle?
Well, what is the range of an ICE vehicle? Are all vehicles the same? They're not. So the range on our buses, the 26-seater is 250 kilometers, the 36-seater is 300 kilometers on a single charge. Different vehicles, different range. Even within different models, you can buy a vehicle with a larger battery or with a lower battery. But remember, the battery is the most expensive cost. So it's a question that is like asking me what is the price of a house. It depends. And yeah.
You know, actually, when you compare it with how we fuel, it makes perfect sense. Because even if you start off with a full tank and you make a journey, at some point you're going to have to fill up again.
Top up.
Yes. So the problem again now is infrastructure. So for purposes of now, we are saying, please drive your electric car around Nairobi. Yeah, you're more likely to enjoy the benefits of it. But if you must travel to Mombasa, then have 2 spare batteries. Well, yeah.
Jaza the battery.
Jaza hizo battery mzuri.
You'll find a charging.
Mtito.
You'll find a charging
Top,
station.
yes, top. Weke ingine, fika.
Mombasa,
Ukifika kule unacharge.
Jaza.
But how often do you go to Mombasa? You say you don't buy a car to go to Mombasa to go. You buy a car to commute on a daily basis. So I think sometimes we are worrying about that one journey we do
Christmas.
once a year, Christmas.
Actually,
so why don't we deal with the journeys I do every day?
Actually,
It's a Kenyan thing. You start looking at, the reason why not.
Yeah, why I can't.
Sasa nikinunua hii nitaenda
actually
ushago.
you see, what I'm suffering from
nitatoshea baiskeli ya watoto.
is an evolutionary process that you go through from the time you buy your first car, which half the time is parked because you don't have money to fuel it, okay, to when you can actually fuel it, and
You
then
have nowhere to go.
Yeah, and then there's a little problem of now how you don't have, once you fuel it, you don't have money, so you can't really go anywhere. Then there's the little detail of making it's in good repair. Then you get to a stage where it's actually in good repair and you have fuel, and so you can go where you want to. You will probably not go to Mombasa, but the idea of running out of fuel is no longer a problem. That is the mindset that I'm entering this conversation with.
But we've seen it even with the bus drivers. On day one, when we started our pilot, when they got to like 30% battery, they would drive back to the and they were worried. Today, we enforce a rule that don't bring the bus at almost zero, because just like your phone, you don't want to deplete the battery completely. But we can see there is confidence that they know that I can actually drive this bus for most of the day. Yeah? And that happens with usage. We all used to carry huge power banks everywhere you walked. And over time, behavior changes, and you start now being able to, with your phones, being able to just manage what you're doing. And that will happen. And that, I have no doubt, will happen.
So it's the shillings that, the shillings is what would make sense for, You saw that?
Yeah,
The shillings is what would make sense to a lot of people here, right? So if you're looking at your business and you're saying you're going to buy a vehicle, 5 million shillings, what is the price, by the way? We're looking at a public service vehicle for a bus. What's the price?
A 33-seater.
Yeah.
If you bring in that bus fully built, you will not get much change from 20 million shillings.
20 million shillings. Yes. Okay, voila. Now, when you're going to charge the thing, every day, how much are you spending to charge it?
So in our model, you don't pay for that. That's bundled in the pay as you drive.
Okay.
So you pay a per kilometer fee, which is which different operators have different packages depending on what.
Oh, you pay to drive it?
Yes, you pay as you drive.
Yes, pay as drive. How much are you paying to drive per kilometer?
So it's at the lowest, the ones who have two models. If you own the bus, you bought the bus and you're leasing the battery from us, it's from 25 shillings per kilometer. And if you're leasing the bus, it's a 26-seater bus, it's at 40 shillings. The 36-seater bus, we are starting at 45 shillings per kilometer, and if you are completely leasing, it's 65 shillings a kilometer.
So let me understand something. Yeah. You're paying this money to get the vehicle. It is mine, right? So what am I leasing exactly?
So to be able to make that vehicle affordable to you, What we've done is we are selling you the vehicle, but we then take all the technology risk, which is the battery. And the battery is the biggest expense.
Okay.
So you're leasing the battery from us.
Okay.
But the battery is on the vehicle. So we get into, that's what a battery lease agreement.
Yeah.
And what does that say? That all your service and maintenance, or routine service and maintenance is paid, all your charging. We even clean the vehicles overnight when the buses come, safari checks. We do all that for you, and we also provide comprehensive insurance on that vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah, so that way we cushion you from all the technology risk, but we allow you to, we make it possible for you to afford the bus. So instead of now coughing out 20 million shillings, you're coughing out 5, which is the equivalent to an ICE vehicle.
Let me ask a question.
And then we give you 600,000 kilometers or 8 years warranty on that battery.
That's very good. That's bus. Mkona haya.
There's a few companies coming into the market. I think you've seen quite what used to be the taxis that were electric. So such companies, there's 2 companies that are now beginning to do leasing of vehicles and hire vehicles. So that's coming in. But again, they're going through the same issue because they're bringing quite new fully built units that actually then attract a very high cost of duty. But if we got that fiscal policy that allowed us, for example, what Ethiopia and Rwanda are doing, and Ghana, then you would actually see those vehicles. I mean, we've seen Hertz worldwide ordering 100,000 Teslas because they're looking at it and saying the cost of maintenance, the cost of operation of these hired vehicles is so much lower and gives them a higher profit as vehicles.
Oil marketing companies have the most real estate that is conducive for charging, right? Are they moving into this? Are they seeing the opportunity? Because now when you're thinking of creating a charging station, you have to think of buying the piece of land or leasing the piece of land and putting up all this infrastructure. Are OMCs seeing this as an opportunity? Most definitely. I think we have seen it happening worldwide. We have seen the first fully electric petrol station, because for lack of a better, it's your charging station where you find it's all electric charging points. And here we have seen 1 or 2. I think they've started, one of the companies has got, they've got into partnership. I think it's 2 of the OMCs have got into partnership with the two-wheeler guys. And we can see battery swap stations in that. And if I just let the cat out of the bag, we are actually going to be doing a similar thing where we are putting in a charging, one of the charging stations with an OMC until it's ready for launch. I will not say which one, but yes, we will make a lot of noise about it. Because what's the business sense for the oil marketing company? You see, they're in the business of selling energy. Yeah. So, and they're looking at what is the future energy. The future energy is going to be electricity. So they want to be part of. That future, and they're also looking at their ESG credentials. They're thinking how can we then be part of this push towards sustainability? Yeah, we know that yes, they're still one of the highest polluting industries, but they're looking at what's the future. But they give people like ourselves a real chance, a real fighting chance, because then we don't have to put up the entire capex to actually build this station. So if they then come into that situation, the uptake, then I have more money to actually put into buses to give to operators, and then that uptake gets even higher. So where to go? Yes. Your final message to the government in 20 seconds. We just need to take the laws in the fiscal policy in Rwanda, Ethiopia, or Ghana and implement it here by the letter with no loopholes. And that's it. That's it. We'll start driving brand new electric vehicles in this country. Yeah. Moses, thank you very much for joining us today. Moses Nderitu is the Chief Revenue Officer for BasiGo. It's an electric mobility vehicle, and he's been here telling us about this whole journey of his and other companies that are entering into this space. His is a startup. You've won many awards, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, you were coming to gloat and then you forgot. You started now hitting back at me. See? You already mentioned that word.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.